here's another reason why you want to take control of what you're doing.
Everything kind of funnels into the only winning move is not to play the game.
I don't know, guys. This whole thing sounds pre-recorded.
Hey guys, welcome to the Weather Report, another episode on a Sunday night. And you might notice that a certain person is missing. We gave him the day off. Mr. Ken Madden is off doing his own thing, and he don't do the sporto stuff. And I've been chomping at the bit to do a podcast exactly like we're going to do tonight. And I have a very special guest. His name is Brian Tramel, and he is the Shootin the Shiznit guy. He's from stspod.club. If you want to go to his website right now and go check it out. But actually, I want you to sit here and I want you to listen to the podcast, because that's what we're all about here. And like I said, I just want to welcome Brian Tramel here. How you doing, Brian?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. stspod.club. You got that right. You even said the name right, Brian Tramel. So that's one of those, I always tell people it's either Tramel or Tramel. Apparently people can spell it correctly when I say Tramel. But yeah, STS Pod, we are close. I'm excited to be talking about wrestling without me having to produce the show. And you can take care of it afterwards. But we're excited because we've been doing this podcast for over 8 years, and we're closing in on episode 1,000. So
Wow.
that is a big milestone for me. So
Wow,
we're
that is
excited about it.
Huge, man. Congratulations, man. I
1,000 episodes. I feel tired. So
you know that most podcasts don't make 10 episodes, right?
I know it. I know.
Man,
I know.
that
That's
is
what they
crazy.
told us. So
That is crazy. Well, let us start off right here. Tell us a little bit about Brian Tramel. Tell us about the before podcasting, Brian Tramel, or before everything. Who is Brian Tramel?
oh man, I don't know. I mean, I grew up in southeast Missouri, northeast Arkansas. I had a wild ride as a kid. I've been telling a lot of stories on Patreon. They're asking me about my life stories instead of wrestling stories. Didn't have any brothers, no sisters, only child. Dad was a carpenter. My mom was a lunchroom lady. And it just little things that you think about, at my age now, I'm 58, that how they influenced me in different ways. The reason I got into wrestling was because my dad was a weekend alcoholic, and he would give my mother money on Friday so that she could take the kid out to either the movies, which was always a big deal, or one Friday night, the kids across the street was going to wrestling. I'd never been to wrestling. And so she went to wrestling with us, and took me to wrestling in 1978. It was in Blytheville, Arkansas. It was a Memphis wrestling, what they called a spot show. And I've been in love ever since. I sat front row, and everyone, I always ask my people, when did you know it was a work? When did you know it was, I think from day one of me just being so close to the ring, I didn't care, but I didn't know what was going on, but I knew there was something going on. And so the Honky Tonk Man was in the first match on this show, but he was the kisser at the time.
Okay.
And Jerry Lawler did his makeup for him. Lawler and Wayne Ferris, the Honky Tonk Man, are first cousins. And he did the makeup. The makeup was all four of Kiss combined into one face. Okay. But he came out, sticking out his tongue and acting crazy. And here I am at 12 years old. And I was a huge Kiss fan at the time too. So here I am, a Kiss fan, and he comes out. But yeah, from that point on, wrestling came on every Saturday morning. Started at 11 o'clock. And so from that point on, I started watching. I tell a story, but from 78 to about, probably 91, I know that's a long time,
See,
but
now you
I
always-
probably only missed 4 or 5 Memphis wrestling shows.
Wow. See, now you're only 7 years younger than me. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we were born in the 60s, right? So I was
Yes,
born in
yes,
60, you were
66.
born in
Yeah, yeah.
1967, closer to my wife's age. Yeah, so I kind of grit my teeth on wrestling myself. My father was what they called a jobber. My mom would tell you that's a bunch of bullshit story, but I mean, I know for a fact that because I've met the wrestlers, pictures of wrestlers in our house and things, people like Pepper Gomez and Pepper Martin and A-Stack Calhoun. All these guys would come down to the San Jose Civic Center. And this was in the big time Roy Shire days of the what did they call the territories back then?
Yeah. Roy Shire had the California.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my dad would always tell the story that he got his leg broken in a match, and my mom said that was back. It was actually bullshit, but nonetheless, I mean, my dad was not an alcoholic also, but he was one of those guys that was a what do they call it? Good time Charlie. Get paid on Friday, be broke by Monday. But he knew the crowd that he liked to hang around with, and when the wrestling matches would come to town, he would be in there. He would be a gym rat, so they'd ask him, "Hey, can you do a squash match?" Dad would go in for a squash match, and then he'd be at the bar after that with all the guys, with ironically called the Ringside, which was a bar that no longer exists.
Oh, that's funny. I say my dad was kind of like that too. I say weekend. The reason I say that is that Bruce, he never missed a day of work.
Nope.
He was Friday night, the money, we had enough money to go out to eat or go to wrestling or go to the movies. And then we really wouldn't see him a lot except for when he was sleeping. And then about Sunday at 2 a.m., which would be Monday at 2 a.m., he would finally settle down, and then he was up by 4:30, 5 o'clock on a Monday morning, headed to work. Never missed a day of work. And because he was hungover or anything, but yeah, he liked to drink, liked to gamble and stuff like that. So quite a character my dad was. I got a lot of my humor from him, I believe.
Yeah. So then you grew up around what was that? Memphis wrestling. So
that was a territory.
What was the big territory over there? Was it Memphis or was
it
it
was.
Territory?
It was in Memphis. We're talking about they give the numbers, but there was an ungodly amount of people watching that show, and not only in Memphis, but in like you said, the territories. But that show was seen, I believe they said, like 7 out of 10 homes that had Channel 5 was watching Memphis wrestling at the time. It was airing every Saturday.
Right.
And if you're a young person listening to this, let me tell you, when that was happening, everybody that was watching it then. We didn't tape it. We weren't going to watch it later. You was watching it that very moment. And which is kind of scary. I always think about some sci-fi thing, which I guess, what was it? MASH had the biggest, finale ever. They could have really took almost everybody. The aliens could at the time. Everyone was sitting in front of their TV watching MASH. But yeah, Memphis was real popular. A lot of people. I remember going to the playground and thinking to myself, none of the kids in my area would talk about superheroes and stuff. It was like, I'm Jerry Lawler, you're Bill Dundee. We go against, it was the wrestlers. We did all the wrestling moves, got in trouble for it. And
all the time.
Yeah, that was it. That's what we talked about. Is we had Memphis wrestling, and Monday Night Football was huge in my little crew at the time. And music. I mean, I listened to music. We all had our own, little niche that we liked. Like I said, Kiss was one of them. And then we had talked about on my music podcast, Leonard Skinner being a Southern rock was huge in my group of people. We loved Leonard Skinner, Bob Seger, that kind of music. But yeah, I mean, wrestling was a big deal to me. It was I guess it still is a huge deal. And the reason I like it takes me, when I'm watching, it's just like a movie. It takes me out of reality. Yes. I can watch wrestling. Now, after I got into wrestling and studied the way I have a hard time sometimes just forgetting everything I know. I like to do that. I like to forget everything I know and just enjoy it as a fan. So
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you there. So you told me that your first was it your first one that you were front row seats, right?
yeah, it was a little.
Okay.
It was a small arena. It's a small arena, but there was like, you're talking 400 people, and it was American Legion building, and they sold beer, which I later on at 18 years old, me and my best friend went and someone bought beer for us and we sat and drank beer at 18. But the idea that it was such a closed in, there's 400 fans, and it was just such I guess, intimate, but there was alcohol being sold, and there was people that was so drunk, and carrying on with these wrestlers. It was just such an experience. I mean, I could smell it. I'm sitting here getting goosebumps because in my mind, I can smell the popcorn, the beer, and hear the crowd. This tells you in the South at that time, there was not an official, but there was a black section. I know that's going to sound odd to people.
It sounds awful, but there was, there
was a bleacher section, and no black person sat ringside. They didn't sit ringside. They sat in the bleacher. And I remember, you remember Virgil?
I remember Virgil.
Yeah,
yes,
he was Soul Train
he was
Jones.
The valet for the $1 Million Man.
Yeah, he was called Soul Train Jones when he came into Memphis.
I remember Soul Train Jones. Yeah,
and he would go right to that section and just got over so quick because he went over to them. And I didn't mean to sound racist there, but that's the way it was. It was so. I know
reality is reality. Yeah, reality is reality. Too,
yeah, Sputnik Monroe changed in the Memphis area. Changed what was going on. They wouldn't let black people at ringside, and he said he wasn't going to wrestle unless they let them there. Yeah. So he kind of said, they can come and watch wrestling. They can be anywhere. If they can afford a ticket in the front row, then you got to sell them a ticket. So there's a whole deal about that. Jackie Fargo was a huge deal before my time, but he was huge into that too, letting everyone be able to, and huge into protecting the business. Jackie would go to bars in Memphis and be able to actually, show everybody how tough he really was, just because so you would know wrestling was real. That's it sounds silly to us now because of everything we know.
It's all at work now.
Yeah, everybody knows it's a
word. 65. I know it'll work when I see it.
yeah, everything's a word. But man, Jacob Berger was a tough guy. So
hey guys, the chat room is open. So if you want to get a question in to Brian, feel free. Boomer Bob I got a couple of ones starred from Boomer Bob, and we'll get those as we
all right,
get along
sounds
with
good.
the program.
I know Boomer Bob. He does one of my theme songs.
So Boomer Bob's here, and so is Duchess. So hello,
hey Duchess.
Want to come in, and we're welcome for some questions if you'd like. So getting on with the program, as far as you being in the front row, what was hilarious to me is that the evolution of wrestling from being the studio product that it was in the territories back then, or the small arenas like the San Jose Civic Center, probably a small civic center where you are, Brian, seeing the change of the patrons between then and now, where all the grandmas used to get all excited and pissed off at the wrestlers, and you would actually have grandma get off of her stool and start beating on a wrestler. And all of a sudden, now you don't see that happening. Now everything is just high priced, and you got to have a seat around ringside's got to be some, you get the experience then. If you're on ringside, you've bought the experience. You've bought the WWE experience, or the anything like that, which is high dollar tickets right now. But give me a flavor of what it was back being in that front row, being next to grandma.
I mean, it was one of those things where you got to remember everyone thought it was real. There was a whole different feel there back then than there is now. It's an event. It's we taking people to stuff now, and the prices are so outrageously crazy. But if people are going to pay them, go for it. Is what I say. I don't begrudge the WWE for charging anything. But it was one of those things, and I think that was the main difference of the crowd back then compared to the crowd now. Is it really was all about the realness of it. There was everybody believed it was real. There was, we call it kayfabe. There was so much kayfabe going on back then. Guys didn't even when I got into the business, if we had heels and babies, bad guys and good guys in the same car, we would stop at the convenience store before we went to the building and switch cars so that you had all heels in one car and all baby faces in another. So, but wrestling changed, and it changed because it like everything else, because of technology. Wrestling was in small buildings, and then when it got on TV, when it got on regular television, it was a big deal because it was in local areas. And then we had the cable television. Then wrestling changed with cable TV. Then we had the pay-per-views. Technology changed everything. And right now, you can watch wrestling anytime. I used to trade tapes to get tapes from Japan. It would take me about 6 weeks to get my Japanese wrestling, and now I can watch it live. As it happens from Japan in the middle of the night if I wanted to.
Middle of the night. But what astounds me is that the amount of wrestling shows that are on now. So now the Roku TV now has NWA streaming 24/7 to one of its channels, and it's all right. It's more of the guys that I don't know if they couldn't make it, but there's some guys that went to MWA that I remember on WWE or TNA or AEW or like I said, they all travel around, but like EC3. I thought EC3 was a great wrestler for when he was in TNA, and I caught him on NWA, and I'm like, But I mean, the evolution of wrestling and the way that it is now, like, I can say that it was a different experience when I was a kid than it is now when I go to a WWE or AEW event, where it's not, you don't get to hear the announcers. You have a lull between matches. You have all these things that happen, and it's almost like, if you're a kid that's used to watching it on TV, it's almost a letdown when you go to a live event, because you're thinking that, number one, you can hear the announcers, you got all this stuff going on back and forth. Of course, they do some promos up on the big screen. You can hear them do the promos and stuff like that for the next match, but it's not the same as the TV experience. And I think I don't know if it's lost or anything, but it really is a different show. And for sometimes those shows go pretty long. So 4 hours sitting in a seat is a long time. And now they got this two night WrestleManias and stuff like that. That is just incredible, man. There's so much that has gone on with the wrestling business.
I think WrestleMania is one of those things where business wise, it has changed because WrestleMania has always been the biggest event for WWE. We're doing 2 nights, and also they're able to say, okay, so we're going to bring X amount of dollars to your town. And how much you going to give us for this show? So in reality, a lot of that stuff's already bought, so they get so many tax breaks and everything. But then the town is Las Vegas, for example, is bidding like crazy to give them X amount, because they know so many people are going to be coming into town just to be part of WrestleMania.
They be gambling.
And there's a lot of stuff like
gambling. They're going to be spending the money on hotel rooms.
Oh yeah,
it's a big first thing. Yeah, absolutely.
It's got a lot to do with what it does for the community, not only what it's going to do for WWE. WWE with this TKO thing that recently happened, I guess with them going with UFC, has been great for them. Less house shows, TV tapings, making bunch of money and getting big TV contracts. But that's what it's all about now. Is the TV contract? They got one with Netflix. They get one because they're live. There's not a lot of live television anymore. Now I don't watch wrestling live, but it seems to be NBA, football, NFL, NASCAR, you name it. When it comes to sports is still live, and you might get an award show, you might get something like that, but TV, if you got a live show, you can charge a lot of money, and that's what happened when they went to Netflix. 10 years for, I don't know, I'm just going to say ungodly gazillion dollars. So there you go.
Here's my dirty little secret. I haven't watched one episode of Raw since they went to Netflix.
Oh, wow. Really?
And I have Netflix, but to me, I'm a channel flipper. And that's the problem with Netflix, is that they have you captive. If you're on Netflix, you're watching WWE, you can't channel flip. You can't, during the commercial, you can't go somewhere else and see what's going on somewhere else. Like there's a football game or a baseball game or, catching up with this or that.
That's why I love YouTube so much, when I just flick through those reels. I got a VPN, and my Netflix thinks I live in Australia. So I'm able to get Raw, and I'm able to get NXT and SmackDown all on Netflix. So it's one of those things where if you watch it the next day, you can fast forward. You don't have to sit and listen to commercials. Yeah. But I've always watched wrestling, except for Memphis when I was a kid. But after the VHS came out, and I'd be able to tape it, like when it comes to wrestling, I've always watched it on, I guess you say fast forward, because there is some people that, that I don't have to watch them if I don't like them, kind of thing,
Who was your first wrestler that you met face to face? Shook his hand, got to be friends?
Probably Lawler.
Nice.
Yeah, I had some friends that was in Philadelphia. I was doing a radio show telling about Memphis wrestling every Saturday. After the show went off on Sunday, we would tape the radio show. It was called Wrestling Radio in Philadelphia. And I took those tapes, put them on cassette, and actually asked if Jerry wanted to listen to some of them, because we had been really putting over. Ended up, those people from Philadelphia came all the way to Memphis for a trip, and we went to all the little towns that Memphis wrestling goes to in a week's time. We played against the Jerry Lawler softball team. We did all kinds of fun stuff. But I met him and gave him the stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple months later, I've just told this story recently on one of the podcasts. A few months later, I was at a little town show, and I had some others. I asked him if I could come take pictures. So he said, yeah. He said, come on, take pictures. You can be around ringside. He said, come on back and we'll talk. So I went back and into the dressing room. It was the first time I ever was in the dressing room. I was able to take photographs of him, Bill Dundee, all the wrestlers that was there. That kind of was my in. And when he got ready to go to his match, it was him, Bill Dundee, and Rocky Johnson, The Rock's dad.
The Rock's dad, yeah.
And he said, Lawler said, won't you walk out with us? And I'm like, what? So first out, Rocky Johnson, Bill Dundee, and third out was me out of the dressing room, and then Jerry Lawler behind me. And it was just so crazy to think that I had just walked out with these legends, freaking legends in professional wrestling.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, Paul Heyman was at that show, and Lawler broke his jaw that night.
No,
he hit him so hard. Paul did something he wasn't supposed to do, and Lawler just knocked the shit out of. I'm sorry, can you cuss on here?
Yes, you can do whatever you want. Here. This is a podcast, dude. We don't have no rules.
But yeah, I started taking photographs just around the ringside before I actually started going into the dressing rooms, and then Jerry let me, go into the dressing rooms and everything. And he was like the first one I met, and kind of introduced me to a lot of the other people.
So you were a
But-
photographer. So you did some photography. Were
I
you
did. I
were you
did a lot.
pictures and stuff like that at the time.
Yeah, I sold a couple of really. I got into black and white and sold a couple of black and white photos to Bill Apter for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And then used the photos. I've got a great story. So I was taking pictures and then started hanging out with the wrestlers. I don't know if you know Dutch Mantell. He was one of the guys that taught me a lot of stuff about wrestling. But Dutch had a friend during this time, and this friend wanted me to take photographs in the graveyard for him. And he was going to send those photographs to the WWE. This sounds like a bullshit story, but it is the freaking truth. I took photos. I've got proof, but I took photos of The Undertaker, who we called Mark at the time.
Yeah, Mark.
No tattoos whatsoever, Bruce. He didn't have one tattoo on his body. And the legend is that he sent those photographs to Vince McMahon along with a bunch of other people. And some of them have been found in Canada. I found a guy who had them, who he had sent them to the Canadian promoter also. And it's him standing here in Jonesboro, Arkansas at the cemetery. So
God.
that was my claim to fame, I guess, during the time. But yeah, I did that along with I started doing my own newsletter. I did a newsletter called Wrestling Right. It was a little small fanzine is what they were called back then. And I did that for like a couple of years and published it. We had some of the Paul Heyman. I knew him, Jim Cornette. There was all kinds of guys.
All the biggies.
They all got the newsletter because we were
huge.
Yeah, we was all the same age.
Who's bigger than Paul Heyman right now? I mean, really, as manager wise, it's just a genius. I mean, basically a wrestling genius.
Bruce, he was a genius back then when he was just barely. Yeah, I met Paul. The first time I met Paul, I was taking pictures around the ring, and he had Sid Vicious with him in that big, humongous gimmick. Sid was there. I didn't even know who Sid was.
Sid was huge and ugly, and
it was this Friday before the Saturday he debuted on television, and he says, Lawler looks down at me because he's Sid against Lawler, and Paul's at ringside, and he says, "Do you know who that is?" And I was like, "Yeah," because Paul was a huge fan, and he was a photographer, and I had a book of his of all these pictures he took. And I said, "Yeah, it's Paul Heyman," which his name was Paul Dangerously back then.
Yeah,
but I said, "That's Paul Heyman," and Paul. How the hell do you know who I am? Here he is in Arkansas. And I go, I said, I just blah, blah, blah. I talked to him a little bit about it. And as we're around the ring, I'm saying to him, I follow wrestling, blah, blah, blah. And then we go to a convention. This is like 2 or 3 years later. I'm at a convention and in Memphis, a wrestling convention, and Heyman walks into the convention with Eddie Gilbert. I don't know if you remember Eddie, but he walks in with Eddie. Great.
Remember them all.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm all the way across the convention, and he starts yelling, "That motherfucker right there! That motherfucker right there!" And I was looking around. He's, "You!" And I was like, "Me?" And I mean, it just scared the shit out of me, And he was like, "How did you know who I was that night?" And then I would call him and leave long messages for him, and he would sometimes get back to me. But it was real. Within the little loop of our friends, we knew that Paul would listen to your message, but you never knew whether he was going to call you back or not. And he called me one night. I had completely kind of got out of the wrestling business. And he calls me like 2 a.m. in the morning and says, "Hey, I need something." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "I need a videotape of when the Ultimate Warrior was, when Papa Shango did that to the Ultimate Warrior and he started throwing up. Do you have a tape of that?" And I go, "No, man, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing tape trading anymore. I don't have one." well, find one. And so one of my buddies had it, and my buddy sent it to him overnight, and Paul sent him $100 to send it plus an extra $100 just for doing it.
Yeah.
But he was doing some kind of prank on Jim Hellwig, and he wanted that footage so he could do the prank. I don't know what he was doing, but then I had talked to him, I guess before he started this run with Roman Reigns. I had talked to him a little bit, but not much. But yeah, they get so, I hadn't talked to the Undertaker since he left Memphis, and I've thought about, man, I really want to show this picture and do a meet and greet with him, but it's so expensive. It's like, I don't want to spend $500 to tell him, hey, do you remember me? Kind of thing. So
yeah, we have a meet and greet coming up here in San Jose here pretty soon that I'm gonna pay for to go see Rick, man. I got to go see Ric Flair before he passes on, man. I got to meet him. So.
I thought he passed on in that last match he had. So,
yeah, exactly. But hey, circling back to Mark, the first time I saw Mark was on AWA up in Minnesota. And one thing that I remember is that I remember seeing Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty for the first time up in AWA, and they came out like this was had to be 1983, 84, somewhere around that era. And they were just all baby faces at times. Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty were just so young at that time before their Hollywood Express thing that they did, or Rock and Roll, whatever they were. But I remember that they bled all over the place. That was their match when they came in.
Yeah, it was like, Doug Summers and Buddy Rose. There is a bloody match.
You remember that one? Remember that one?
Just
my God, they bled like stuck pigs, man. I've been trying to look for that footage. I cannot find it, but was like,
I'll see if I can find it, because it was on. Yeah, the AWA might not. It's wrestling's real weird about what you can put on YouTube and not put on YouTube.
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. You can't, you got Texas Championship Wrestling, you've got WCW back in the day, or when it was WCCW, and that before that was Georgia Championship Wrestling. So you know all those down south stuff. All I got up here is we got Portland Wrestling. We have the Big Time Wrestling, which was in San Francisco, Roy Shire's outfit, where basically we had like the Great Mephisto, we had Ray Stevens, we had Pat Patterson, some of the guys that are still in the WWE. Man, all these guys, Pepper Gomez, which was actually the first wrestler I ever met back with my dad back in 1968. Barely remember any of that happened, but man, it's just so many people. Peter Mavia, who was Rocky Johnson's father, So, and then you've got like I said, Pat Patterson. I went to school with Kenji Shibuya's son in Hayward when I had a brief residence in Hayward. So I remember going to school with his son, and yeah, just every place that you go to in the United States is rich with wrestling freaking lore, and you just
is, because that with the major cities, that's what it was all about. You had your what you call your local promotions, but you also you talked about being a kid and being in the wrestler. I'm good friends with Jerry Lawler's youngest son is Kevin Lawler. I was good friends with him. And when you talk to him or the kids that were involved with the wrestlers at the time, they see the business so much different than we do. I mean, they see all those guys were just, was just daddy's friends. Dad went to work and, and then with me, when I got doing the photography and then being able to hang out with some of the guys that went, like the Paul Heymans, the Jim Cornettes, the Undertaker, that went up to be, superstars, it kind of like, it's like I couldn't get it. I'm not excited. I just don't get nervous around famous people, and that's what done it. You're talking. I had an apartment in what they did spot shows here in Jonesboro, and I had an apartment where on the weekends my friend always went to our hometown, and I stayed. And we had a couch. I had a couch, and the guys could, the Undertaker stayed at my house and slept on the couch so he wouldn't have to drive to
Right.
Nashville that night. So that was all the boys knew that if you could get to me first and
Yeah,
say, hey, you care if I stay? Yeah.
You got a soft place.
I've had them stay, I've had one of them on the couch, one of them in the floor kind of thing, but they didn't have to pay for it. So it was, and they love wrestlers. You don't understand. Wrestlers love the idea of being able to have somebody in a town. Owen Hart was very known for this. He had a friend in almost every town where he could go get a home cooked meal. He could watch TV. He could, this was real people instead of being around the fans or being around you got to remember those guys hang around the wrestlers or the people that they work with a lot during the day and everything when they're going to
on the
gym.
road for over 300. Some of them are on the road all year, but basically the average of somewhere around 250, 300 days a year. They're on the road.
This was my accomplishment when I first got to managing. This is just independents around this area. The first 9 months we did 100 dates, and that was big for me because we were working just weekends and not doing a lot of during the week shows. But it kept us busy. It really did.
Yeah. So you're into managing. Also, I hear that you've stepped into the ring a couple of times. Huh? Is that right?
Yes, I was horrible. I have this podcast where me and Jerry Lawler had a spat, and he told me, I was a piece of shit. Yeah, told me I was. Now this was just a shoot. This is for real. And so I put it in my little newsletter about it, and I said, and then I had a guy in the wrestling business in Tennessee say. And I wasn't familiar with a lot of the independents in that area, but he goes, dude, he said, train a little bit. I'll put you in the ring and you could tell everybody, hey, I did wrestle. And I did about 18 matches. And then I said, I watched a lot of the video. I had almost every one of them on video. And I was like, I'm horrible and I'm not getting better. So I quit that. And then years later, I had ended up being four guys that wanted to get in the wrestling business. So I managed for 5 years in this area, did shows every weekend. I would take the heel team and I would be the manager of the heel team. And then we always went against each other for the first few years. And then you had a babyface team that would, and then I would help them with the psychology and everything. That's why I say I wish I could forget everything sometimes because I studied tag team wrestling like it was, like I was going to be a doctor or something. I mean, how did they do the tag? How did they do the hot tag? Who started first? And I just went into that. And then that's what people didn't really know it, but that's kind of what I did outside the ring. I would tell the guys, okay, it's time. It's time to do this. It's time to, or I would work out the very start of the match and tell them this is what we want. And then, or I would do the finish. Here's the finish. Y'all do rest of it, kind of thing. But they got better and better and better, and they didn't need me. And I was going through a divorce, and I said, I'm getting out of the wrestling business. But it was one of those, man, it was a dream come true. I always wanted to be part of wrestling. Had a great time doing it. Had some crazy paydays of like $3. Drive 2.5 hours and get paid $3. Made some good friends. I mean, friends to the day. I still talk to them. It was something. I remember doing my first TV taping, and it was a horrible television show. But I had said, okay, I'm done. You could kill me right now and I'd be happy because I had, kind of like lived my dream of being part of a television show. I did TV there. I did TV in Mississippi, and television in Mississippi it was fun. But, it was one of those things where I got to, a lot of people do that, like being a musician. Yeah, you're right, Boomer. That's kind of what it was. We packed up the car and we took off. So I later on did matches with my ex-wife. I did a barbed wire match with her one night. She was a trained wrestler. I did. Yes, yes. I had a chain match one night.
Every
with
man's
a-
dream. Every man's dream. Get
Yeah,
my wife into the ring.
I bladed my arm.
Oh.
So it was when I was bleeding on my arm because I got hit into the barbed wire. I had a match with a 60-something-year-old man, a chain match one night. He was 60-something, I was 40-something. It was god awful, but he wanted to do something. He wanted to bleed. So there we go. I promoted shows for probably about 2 years, along in that 5-year time, and booked for one promotion. I booked for 6 months. It was a little small and promotion, and I had fun just writing the storylines for the show, each show, week to week kind of thing. And that was a lot of fun too, because I was able to put all my creativity that I had created stuff, when I was a kid with my I want to say my wrestling action figures, but it was actually like G.I. Joe and I had a collection of guys called the Johnny West collection.
Yeah, Johnny West collection. Yeah.
I used those guys as the wrestlers, and I had all
Dirk
my
Banner.
stuff.
Yeah, Dirk Banner, and yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was able to do. So that was
cool.
a lot of fun. Yeah,
That's cool for sure. Do you think that is it the same now with managers these days? Like you got MVP out there doing the Hurt Foundation. You got they're not coaches anymore. They're just part of the show. And
the actual. I want to tell you that it's one of the funny things about being able to coaches and helping the guys. Paul Ellering did that for the Road Warriors. He booked all the stuff. They had to go through him. I kind of took that and said, okay, you go through me. We'll put on a match for you. This is how much we'll put the match on for. I wrote almost every one of our storylines. They would tell me who they wanted us booked against, and I would say, okay, look, because I didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust people. I didn't want my guys in the ring where they would get hurt because you had people that was untrained. So I kind of pick and choose. And that's one of the reasons I had all 4 of them wrestling each other almost every time, or feuding. We'd go to one little section of Tennessee where we feuded, or we'd switch up. I would have the baby faces as heels, but my gimmick was I was a coach and I had a clipboard, and I used the clipboard. I broke so many clipboards. Smack over somebody's head, and I have a friend who always reminds me that I broke his nose, but it was the only nose I ever broke. I ever hurt anybody because he leaned in. When I went to swing it, there's no way I could have stopped, and he leaned in instead of taking it center to the head. And I probably got paid $7, and he got $8 that night, but with a broken nose. Yeah. But it was fun. It was one of those things. And then, like I said, I stopped doing that. And then I started doing a website in like 2011. And I don't know if you where Dave Meltzer. Do you know who Dave Meltzer is?
I absolutely know who Dave Meltzer is. Yeah.
I kind of stole his idea the way he did it and did it for the Memphis area, all these little independents and the Memphis television show at the time, and did the website for like 5 years. And I had started, I guess, 2007. We started that 2007, 8 or 9. We started a podcast then.
Wow.
But I had stopped doing the website in 2011, so we never did any more episodes up until 2017. But I kick myself in the ass all the time that when I quit doing the website, I should have just kept doing a podcast, because I was really doing a podcast way before anyone else was doing it.
2007. That's like the beginning. That was the genesis.
We was using Blog Talk Radio. Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember Blog Talk Radio, but I got into podcasting in 2012. So that's I'm still a youngin.
Yeah. I mean,
we still a little wet behind the ears.
we used some of those episodes. They're lost, so we can't find any of them. They're not on any websites or anything. But man, the technology was was horrible. I mean,
Yeah,
really, we
yes,
have
it's horrible.
we have
So easy
sound.
now. It's so
Yeah,
easy.
yeah,
now.
it's real easy with this StreamYard. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about storylines and angles. And like I said, I've been watching wrestling since I was a kid, and the storylines and angles as we get older, you just see them coming, and you just going like, man, it sure would be nice to see something fresh. Now, ECW had like gory, freaking off the wall, freaking story. I mean, they really never had a storyline. Their storyline was go in, beat each other to death, make a lot of blood, hurt somebody if you can, if they want you to hurt them, blah blah blah. Go on with life. But with the advent of like with WWE and the family, and with the Usos and the Inouye family, to be exact with you, they're emphasizing a lot on the one family, and I don't know if they owe them something or not, but it sure seems like all that stuff is revolving around that Inouye family, all that wrestling heritage, which it really is it's a huge heritage. I mean, Peter Maivia is the one that actually started out all this stuff with the heritage. You got the Samoans and things like that. So well deserved stuff like that. But going back to the storylines and the angles and stuff like that, do you find it? I guess, do they find it hard to come up with something new? Because basically sometimes you look at an angle and you just go like, why, why is,
Oh yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I
why?
criticize it a lot of times where, they should have done it this way. They should have done it that way kind of thing. It, to me, it is, see, I've done 244 episodes of a show called Rolling into Memphis. So 244 weeks ago, Memphis wrestling started again. This is a new version of Memphis wrestling, and another dream come true. I was able to become involved with with the podcast of their Memphis wrestling. Also, I've been seen on Memphis wrestling. My face has been
You're there.
so there you go. There's another dream. But what was I talking? Oh, I learned, one of these things about professional wrestling is if you say you know everything, you're going to stop learning, and with it you can learn stuff year in and year out. I remember looking at one of the Japanese wrestlers had a few chapters of his book that was translated. Tanahashi, I have a hard problem saying his name, Tanahashi. But he said it's not. Yeah, it's not only. Yeah, there you go. It's not only the. It's not only the moves that people do. It's what you do in between. So I never thought of professional wrestling like that. But then you start looking at what do they do, from point A to point B. So I also learned, and like I said, in 244 episodes, I would start watching the show, and I was pissed. We got a main event for 5 minutes, and I would call the promoter and I would say, dude, you gave me 5 minutes for the main event. And he says, BT, this is what you got to think about. We've been writing a story, and that this is about the story, and it's also about the end of the story and the end of the match. We really, so what if we take 7 minutes to bring them out, 5 minutes to wrestle, but it's all about that finish. So
Right.
you learn things like that. The story gets me. That's the reason why I have a hard time watching AEW, is because I don't get into their stories, and I hate to say I don't like the violence, but I don't like the violence all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they try to cross the line almost every pay-per-view. And it got to where the last pay-per-view I watched was Sting, a huge Sting fan. So that was the last when he did the retirement pay-per-view. I don't know. That was Revolution. I don't even know what year that was.
Right.
And don't watch their TV anymore. But I'm not that fan that says they're shit, they're not any good, blah, blah, blah. Hey, if I don't like it, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to bitch about it. But, and I see so many, I was there for was it All In? Yeah, it was All In. It was the very first pay-per-view that they did. I was, StarCast, I was there. It felt like there was something different happening in professional wrestling, and that for so many years, WWE had been at the top of the game. You know, you had TNA, which had got a little bit, but WWE is
had a legitimate run, and
yes,
and it just went to shit.
Yeah,
in like a matter of weeks, it went to crap.
I really think
Dixie Carter did them no favors.
Yeah.
Carter did them no favors.
Yeah, when Hogan came in, it kind of destroyed TNA because they changed everything. But it felt like it felt like I was part of something. And we went around, we gave our business cards to every, person that was there for the podcast. We had a close to 20,000 downloads that weekend. And I was like, do what? What is going on? What is going on here? I was like, I showed the numbers to my partner at the time, and I was like, what just happened? I was used to getting, I never had 20,000 in 3 days, but it just felt like there was something going on. And it still felt like there was a movement, there was a revolution, there was we're going to change it. We're going to give you the alternative. And you got, a guy, Tony Khan, who is a multimillionaire. Back in the day, we always call people like that money marks. Yeah. And he is a fan just like me. And he grew up, just like me, reading the Wrestle Observer newsletter. And it's almost like he books just for that crowd, and that's just not doing well for him.
No. It depends on where they're at, because I've seen some huge crowds, but then I've seen some, like Florida's Florida's not going off for him anymore.
They got a weird
when they were at Daly's place. Yeah, when they were at Daly's place, it was going off the charts, and then they started traveling, and for some reason, when they got past that, we only do 1 day a week. Now we're doing several shows a week, and it just seems like the flavor's gone to what it used to be. The original starters of the actual wrestling company have gone away. People like Chris Jericho's just leaving, but you've got Cody Rhodes, who started it up. He's gone. He was actually one of the starters and stuff. And there's very few of those guys that are still left. So I enjoy just watching a whole bunch of stuff. I like New Japan Pro Wrestling. A lot of guys have left and came over. I was thinking, hey, Okada coming over to AEW, man, that was going to be great. That was going to be the turning point. It fizzled. It
did.
He is one of the biggest.
How did you fuck that up?
How does Okada fizzle? you just get it's beyond me and how they fizzle. But
him and Omega is some of the best matches I've ever seen.
Man, let me tell you, that's a different type of wrestling over in Japan.
It is.
Let me tell you, man, it was hard. You got 20 counts. You've got it's just a whole different flavor of wrestling. I really enjoyed it. Lucha Underground was one of my favorite shows.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh, man. Lucha Underground was just fantastic.
Totally different vision of pro wrestling. I thought it was fun. It was one of those things where, you videotape everything way ahead of time. Yeah. And you put sound effects in it, and you do all kinds of crazy, they killed Conan, I'm like, not only did they fire him as the booker, they killed him. But I really
Very unique. Very unique for sure. Got a couple questions for you before we go. So what do you think about who's the bigger heel, MJF or like who was it in the WWE? I had somebody in the W. I wanted to say John Cena, but John Cena has since turned a good guy. But the biggest heel in WWE, MJF. You think MJF has the future? You think he's going to stay with AEW, or is he going to make?
I think it's all about the money when it comes to him, and that's okay. That's why a lot of these people are in AEW right now, is because of the money. Think he's kind of fizzled out for me. MJF did, because of some of the stuff the silliness they did with him. Really good on the microphone, a little bit smaller than WWE likes. But man, and I know this, to me, unless you are on the main roster of the WWE, you've not made it in the wrestling business.
Right.
But MJF would fit right in. He's good friends with Cody Rhodes and Ricky Saints. It's in NXT right now. They're all good friends. He put him on television, opening Raw one night when he signs, and just let him say what he wants to say.
Exactly.
And he would, right then, he would be a star. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of his. So,
LA Knight.
love LA Knight. Been a fan of his since he was in TNA. So, yeah. I like him a lot.
And the man from Chicago, the color. Color, CM Punk. What do you think about CM Punk?
I love CM.
And his thing with AEW and what went on with him there, and the reason why he's in WWE. Was that a great? Was that a work?
No, not at all. No, not a work. Not a work at all. He completely, let me just say, they fucked that. They fucked that, but letting him go, letting Cody go. All you got to do is look at the ratings. That show, Collision Show, was getting 800 to close to 1 million viewers. I think 888 was the average. Yeah. He left, and now it's lucky to get 400,000.
They only have it like every couple of weeks now. They don't do Collision all the time now. So
yeah, they have something really weird going on in AEW. I meant to say a while ago is that they are drawing like 2,000 people in little buildings now. That's what they're booking. Right. The ratings are going down. But when they do a pay-per-view, if you look at the pay-per-view buys, they're almost sometimes they're the biggest buys they've ever had for a pay-per-view, but the other two things are down. So it makes no sense. This is not what wrestling business is.
They go to the UK, they sell a place out in the UK, they sell a place out in freaking Australia, and then they come back and we've got these piddly
2,000, 2,200.
Exactly. So we got a couple of questions from the comments here. Boomer Bob actually has two. He says, "Do you like actual wrestling, or do you like other combat sports also?"
No, I don't. I don't like the real stuff. So I kind of like UFC maybe up until UFC 24, 25, something like that. Then I watched UFC when Conor McGregor got real popular. We would go to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch some of his first, but not really into real combat sports at all. I've always been. Now I like if I like some guys that that actually do hole for hole stuff. In the wrestling business, I always liked watching that. And in what we called shooters, we had a shooter, a guy that could tie you up in a. If you was doing something stupid in the ring, I always told him to put somebody. I said, put them in a hold and tell them to slow down. And he would just grab them by their arm and just do something with the arm. And next thing you know, their face is on the mat. He goes, BT told me that you're supposed to be slowing down. And I was like, thank you. I appreciate that. So, yeah, I kind of like that part of it. But no, I guess because I've been so involved around wrestling for so much, I don't. That's what's hurting AEW too, is the realness in the what they do and all the moves that they do. That everyone gets hurt, and I hate that. I just hate seeing people get hurt. So
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about shoots, because that was going to be my next question.
All right.
So we know that shoots are like for real. That's somebody pissed somebody off. Somebody's going to take a fist. Somebody's going to take a real chair. Somebody's going to take that candlestick across the neck. What was the most real shoot that you ever witnessed live and like right there in front of you?
A couple of things. I had just this crazy guy that he's wrestled as Rooster Cogburn, as an old Wayne, John Wayne movie, but that was his name. And he just decided one night he was going crazy with the chair, and he just hit everybody. But me and my guys got the hell out of there, and said, and then he came backstage bitching us out because we ran. We were big pussies. I was like, I'm not getting hit by a chair. I don't do this for a living. I do this for the weekend. I was involved one night where a guy threw a chair and it hit another guy. You know, it wasn't supposed to hit him as bad as, but it hit him in the head and split him wide open. And that guy, they got into a real fight, and me and another guy had to actually jump them and split them apart. But one of the weirdest things, I was in a dressing room one night, and Brian Christopher, who's no longer with us, it was Jerry Lawler's son.
Mm-hmm.
Him and this guy got into a fight, and Brian Christopher used a little bitty bat, but it had barbed wire on it, and he actually busted in the dressing room. It was all a shoot. And then Brian calls me afterwards and says, "Don't put on your website that was a shoot. We're going to turn it into an angle." And I was like, no, I'm not going to tell people that was an angle, because nobody saw it but the boys, you know, the guys backstage.
Yeah.
And it was really scary, because you're in the wrestling business for so long that you don't really expect a real fight, you know, in a little tiny dressing room.
Right.
But yeah, there was a bunch of us that split that apart. But that's probably about the only, you know, most of the time you go in the ring not trying to hurt anybody. Your job is to
everybody's got a job. They got to go to the next city and do the next show.
You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to. I had very little, you know, injuries during the time. I know I only fell off the ring, but and did the bumps like that. But you know, my knees hurt now from 5 years of doing that. But didn't have any problems. I almost got into it one night because some team decided, when I told everyone to go to the finish, they decided to get the hot tag and then beat my guys up for 7 minutes instead of going to the finish. And I was mad. I was just super mad. And but most of the time, I mean, I had a really good time, and I trusted people. And I wouldn't work with anyone unless I trusted them. So you know, had a good time with that part of it.
Yeah. One last question from Boomer Bob. He wants to know that, is there any old broadcasts of Memphis wrestling available online?
All over. Oh, it is Retro Wrestling Archives, Bob. I'll send you that on. That's my buddy Gene. We do a podcast every week talking about we're going through 1991 right now. And we do every show. Me and two guys sit down and we talk about that show. But he has Memphis wrestling from, God, he has stuff from 78, 79, all the way up. You know, he don't have the current stuff, but the current stuff is on YouTube too. That's where it mainly is aired, the brand new Memphis. But all the classic stuff is up there on his page. So
cool. And then Cody had just came in a couple of minutes ago, and I didn't see him come in, but he was saying that Cody Rhodes was playing, who is that, Goyle in the new Street Fighter movie?
Yeah, a lot of wrestlers doing that Street Fighter. There's
Roman Reigns is Akuma, so.
And we got, what's his name from New Japan is in it too.
Goto.
Goto's in it.
Goto, yeah. He's all mad at me because I don't do Street Fighter, so. Anyway, hey Brian, we can go on for hours and hours and hours about this, and I tell you what, but I want to be appreciative of your time, man. I really appreciate you being on the show. Why don't you give everybody every place that they can find you, you know, where they can get your videos, all that stuff. Go ahead.
Go to stspod.club. It is the SoundCloud page, but if you go to stspod.club, in the right-hand corner it's our corner. That's what we say in the South, the corner. Right-hand corner, you hit the link of all links is what it says, and everything of my stuff is right there. Like I said, we're closing in on 1,000 episodes, and
wow.
I do videos every week for Memphis Wrestling and their podcast, and I also do we have been doing 2 episodes a week for over 8 years. And so I average, when it comes to my sponsors, I always say we average 2 a week, but we usually do over 100, and we do more than 104. So we do about, I think I did 112 last year. So we're doing stuff constantly. I just have a real good time with the podcast. We have a show that I love, 2 shows I love doing. We came up with this concept. I stole it from the Who's Right crew, where they had one show where they give the Patreons 5 minutes to talk. So we have a show called 5 Minute Time Limit. You come on, you talk for 5 minutes, and then I kick you out. And then we have a show called WTF News Desk. And we've been doing this show for, I think it's 91 episodes. I thought we'll never be able to do this monthly, but it is, it's strange and crazy stories that happen in pro wrestling during just 1 month. We have to, I do 10 stories and then I have to like shave stories off. I never thought I would find that much stuff going on, but there is always something crazy going on.
Too cool. Well, thank you, Brian. Brian Tramel, freaking podcaster exclusive and just a wrestling master, man. I really enjoyed everything to talk to you about. All the show notes are down at the bottom of your comment page, wherever you get this, whether you get this on the podcast app or whether you're seeing this on YouTube, Rumble, or X right now, you can go get it. But man, again, Brian, thank you for coming on, and we're going to have you back again as soon as I can give Ken another day off. And then we'll talk some more about
all right,
that.
Bruce. Hey, I just want to say something before you leave. I just want you to, your audience, to know something. I love my mama.
There you go. You love your mama. That's for sure. Thank you. And thank you for tuning into the Weather Report. And make sure you come out here and you see us on the Weather View tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. on X. That's 6 a.m. Pacific time. And you can come out here with all these characters like Boomer Bob, like Cody, like the Duchess, John Jamingo, if we can ever get him back on, Aaron from I Had to Say It podcast. And every once in a while, we get a little invite from old Brian over here. He'll pop in every once in a while, but we welcome you to come here. And like I will leave you like I do every week on every show that I do. You guys have a great day, a great week, and a great life. Be good to yourselves. We'll see you later, guys. Bye-bye.